It was a typical Tuesday afternoon at the Riverside Community Center. The old building buzzed with the sounds of children laughing, playing, and doing homework. 8-year-old Tommy sat alone at a corner table, trying his best to understand his math problems. His worn sneakers had holes in them, and his clothes were clean but clearly hand-me-downs. Tommy's mom worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. Every day after school, he walked to the community center where he could get help with homework and stay safe until his mom picked him up at 7 in the evening. Some of the other kids made fun of his old clothes and broken shoes, but Tommy tried not to let it bother him too much. That's when she walked over to his table. "Having trouble with those math problems?" asked a gentle voice. Tommy looked up to see a beautiful young woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. She was 22 years old, fresh out of college, and had just started working part-time at the community center. Her name was Lisa, and she had the most caring personality Tommy had ever encountered. "Yeah, I don't get this stuff," Tommy said, feeling a bit embarrassed about struggling with his homework. Lisa pulled up a chair next to him. "Don't worry, we'll figure it out together. Math can be tricky, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually pretty fun." For the next hour, Lisa patiently helped Tommy work through each problem. She never made him feel stupid when he got something wrong. Instead, she would say things like, "Close, let's try a different way," or "You're thinking in the right direction." The days went by. Lisa became Tommy's favorite person at the community center. She always had time for him, whether he needed help with schoolwork or just wanted someone to listen to his stories about his day. Lisa noticed that Tommy's shoes were falling apart, so one day she quietly placed a brand new pair of sneakers by his backpack. "Where did these come from?" Tommy asked, his eyes wide with surprise. "Oh, someone donated them to the center," Lisa said with a small smile. "They look like they might fit you perfectly." Tommy knew she was fibbing. He had seen her earlier that week looking at his feet and making mental notes about his shoe size, but he didn't say anything. He just hugged the shoes to his chest and whispered, "Thank you." Lisa had grown up in a loving family, but they didn't have much money either. She understood what it was like to feel different from other kids because your clothes weren't as nice or your lunch wasn't as fancy. That's why she chose to work with children at the community center. She wanted to make sure every kid felt valued and cared for. Week after week, Lisa and Tommy developed a special bond. She would help him with his reading, and he would tell her about his dreams of becoming a teacher someday, just like her. Lisa was amazed by how smart and determined Tommy was, despite all the challenges in his young life. One afternoon in late spring, Tommy was having a particularly hard day. Some older kids had teased him about his lunch, which was just a peanut butter sandwich and an apple. He felt sad and lonely, even though he tried to hide it. Lisa noticed his quiet mood right away. "Hey buddy, what's going on? You seem a little down today." Tommy shrugged his shoulders. "It's nothing, just some kids being mean." Lisa sat down next to him on the old couch in the reading corner. "You know what? Those kids don't know how special you are. You're kind, you're smart, and you never give up. Those are the most important things about a person." Something about the way she said it made Tommy feel better. Lisa always knew the right things to say. She made him feel like he mattered, like he was worth something. As they sat there talking, Tommy looked at Lisa's face. She was so pretty and nice. She cared about him when nobody else seemed to. In that moment, with all the innocence and honesty that only an 8-year-old could have, Tommy made a declaration that would change both their lives forever. "Miss Lisa," he said, looking directly into her eyes, "I'm going to marry you when I grow up." Lisa's eyes widened in surprise, and then she started laughing. Not a mean laugh, but a sweet, gentle laugh that showed how touched she was by his words. "Oh, Tommy," she said, ruffling his dark hair. "That's the sweetest thing anyone has ever said to me." "I'm serious," Tommy insisted, his little face completely earnest. "I want to take care of you, like you take care of me. I want to make sure you're always happy." Lisa's heart melted. She could see that he really meant it, at least as much as an 8-year-old could mean something like that. "Well," she said softly, If you're still thinking about me when you're all grown up, we'll see what happens. Tommy nodded seriously, as if they had just made the most important agreement in the world. I'll remember. I promise I'll remember. The other kids at the center had overheard the conversation, and some of them started giggling and making kissing sounds. But Lisa quickly put a stop to that. That's enough, she said firmly but kindly. Tommy just paid me a very nice compliment, and we should respect that. From that day forward, Tommy seemed to walk a little taller. He had made a promise to the most wonderful person he knew, and he was determined to keep it. He started paying more attention in school, working harder on his homework, and being extra kind to everyone around him. Lisa, meanwhile, found herself thinking about Tommy's sweet words more often than she expected. There was something so pure and honest about his declaration. She had dated a few guys in college, but none of them had ever looked at her the way Tommy did, like she was the most amazing person in the world. As the school year came to an end, Lisa knew her time at the community center was also ending. She had been accepted to a teaching program in another city and would be leaving at the end of the summer. The thought of saying goodbye to Tommy made her heart ache. During their last few weeks together, Lisa made sure to spend extra time with Tommy. They would sit in the garden behind the community center, and she would tell him stories about all the places she wanted to visit someday. Tommy would share his dreams too, about becoming a teacher, about helping other kids the way Lisa had helped him. "Promise me something," Lisa said one afternoon, as they watched the sunset through the community center windows. "What?" Tommy asked. "Promise me you'll keep working hard in school. Promise me you'll be kind to everyone you meet. And promise me you'll never forget how special you are." "I promise," Tommy said solemnly. Then he added, "And you promise me you won't forget what I said about marrying you when I grow up." Lisa smiled and took his small hand in hers. "I promise I won't forget." On Lisa's last day at the community center, Tommy gave her a drawing he had made. It was a picture of the two of them standing together, with hearts drawn all around them. At the bottom, he had written in his careful 8-year-old handwriting, "For Miss Lisa, I will find you when I'm big. Love, Tommy." Lisa had to fight back tears as she hugged him goodbye. "Take care of yourself, Tommy. I know you're going to do amazing things." As Lisa drove away from the community center for the last time, she looked in her rearview mirror and saw Tommy standing in the doorway, waving goodbye. She had no way of knowing that 12 years later, that little boy would make good on his promise in the most beautiful way possible. Tommy watched until her car disappeared around the corner. Then he went inside and sat at their usual table, touching the spot where she used to sit. He whispered to himself, "I'll find you, Miss Lisa. I promise I'll find you." And deep in his 8-year-old heart, he knew he would. Life moved on after Lisa left for the big city. She settled into her new apartment, started her teaching program, and slowly began building the career she had always dreamed of. But no matter how busy her days became, she never forgot about the little boy who had promised to marry her someday. Lisa kept Tommy's drawing pinned to her bulletin board in every apartment she lived in. Whenever she had a tough day at work or felt lonely in the big city, she would look at that simple crayon drawing and remember the pure, innocent love that 8-year-old had shown her. It reminded her why she became a teacher in the first place, to make a difference in children's lives. Back in their small hometown, Tommy was growing up fast. Without Lisa around, the community center felt different. The new volunteers were nice enough, but none of them took the special interest in him that Lisa had. Tommy found himself working even harder in school, partly because he remembered Lisa's encouragement to never give up. Tommy's mom noticed the change in her son. He seemed more focused, more determined than before. When she asked him about it, Tommy would just say, "Miss Lisa told me I was special. I want to make her proud." His mom had heard about Tommy's innocent crush on the young volunteer, and while she thought it was sweet, she also worried that he was holding on to something that might never happen. But she could see how much Lisa's kindness had meant to him, so she never discouraged his dreams. As Tommy entered middle school, then high school, he kept Lisa's memory alive in small ways. He worked hard in his classes, especially English and math. the subjects she had helped him with. When other kids talked about their crushes or girlfriends, Tommy would just smile and say he was too busy focusing on school to worry about dating. His friends thought he was crazy. "Come on, Tommy," his best friend Jake would say. "Ask Ashley to the dance. She totally likes you." But Tommy would shake his head. "I'm not interested in dating right now. I have bigger plans." The truth was, Tommy measured every girl he met against the memory of Lisa. None of them seemed as kind, as patient, or as caring as she had been. He knew it wasn't fair to compare them to someone he had known when he was just 8 years old, but he couldn't help it. Meanwhile, Lisa was building her life in Atlanta. She had become an elementary school teacher, just as she had planned. Her classroom was always full of laughter and learning, and she had a special gift for connecting with the kids who seemed to be struggling the most. Lisa dated a few men over the years, but none of the relationships lasted very long. Her friends would tease her, saying she was too picky or that she had unrealistic expectations. Lisa would laugh it off, but deep down, she knew the truth. She was looking for the same genuine, pure love that Tommy had shown her all those years ago. "You need to stop looking for Prince Charming," her best friend Monica would tell her. "Real men aren't like fairy tale characters." But Lisa wasn't looking for a fairy tale. She was looking for someone who would look at her the way Tommy had, like she was the most wonderful person in the world. She wanted someone who would love her not because of how she looked or what she could do for them, but simply because of who she was. Tommy was now 16 and had grown into a handsome, confident young man. He was tall for his age, with kind eyes and a smile that reminded everyone of his gentle nature. He had become student body president and was known throughout the school as someone who always stood up for the underdogs. One day, while cleaning out his closet, Tommy found the small notebook where he used to write down things he wanted to tell Lisa when he saw her again. The pages were filled with his childhood handwriting, documenting his achievements and dreams. "Got an A on my spelling test today. Miss Lisa would be proud. Made the honor roll. Can't wait to tell Miss Lisa someday. Helped a new kid at school who was being bullied. Miss Lisa always said to be kind to everyone." Reading through those old entries, Tommy felt a mix of embarrassment and determination. He was almost 17 now, and his promise to marry Lisa when he grew up seemed like such a childish thing. But the feelings behind that promise, the gratitude, the admiration, the love, those feelings had never gone away. Tommy's mom found him reading the notebook that evening. She sat down on his bed beside him. "You're thinking about her again, aren't you?" she asked gently. Tommy nodded. "Mom, do you think I'm crazy? I mean, I was just a little kid when I said all that stuff." His mom smiled and put her arm around her son. "Honey, I think what you felt for Miss Lisa was real, even if you were young. She showed you kindness when you needed it most. There's nothing wrong with being grateful for that. But do you think?" Tommy started, then stopped. "Do I think what? Do you think there's any chance she might remember me? Or that I could find her someday?" His mom was quiet for a moment. She didn't want to crush her son's dreams, but she also didn't want him to spend his whole life chasing after someone who might not even remember him. "I think," she said carefully, "that if it's meant to be, life has a way of bringing people back together. But Tommy, you can't put your whole life on hold waiting for that to happen." Tommy understood what his mom was saying, but he couldn't shake the feeling that his story with Lisa wasn't over yet. He decided to focus on becoming the kind of man who would be worthy of the woman who had been so kind to him all those years ago. Lisa, now 28, was having similar thoughts in her apartment across the state. She had just ended another relationship with a man who seemed nice enough on paper, but didn't make her feel anything special. As she graded papers that evening, she found herself wondering about Tommy. "I wonder what happened to that sweet little boy," she thought to herself. "I hope he's doing well. I hope he's happy." She had tried looking him up on social media a few times over the years, but their small hometown wasn't very connected to the internet yet, and she could never find any trace of him. She didn't even know his last name. At the community center, all the volunteers just called the kids by their first names. Sometimes Lisa would dream about running into Tommy somewhere. In her dreams, He was grown up and successful, and he would smile at her and say, "Miss Lisa, I told you I'd find you someday." But when she woke up, she would remind herself that it was just a dream. Neither Tommy nor Lisa knew it yet, but their lives were about to intersect again in the most unexpected way. Tommy was now a senior in high school, making plans for college. He had decided to study education, partly because of Lisa's influence on his life. Lisa was still teaching in Atlanta, still single, still keeping Tommy's drawing on her bulletin board. She had no idea that the little boy who had promised to marry her was now a young man who had never forgotten his promise. As Tommy prepared for graduation, he made a decision. He was going to try to find Lisa. He didn't know how, and he didn't know what would happen if he succeeded, but he knew he had to try. The promise he had made as an 8-year-old was still burning in his heart. "I'm going to find her," he told himself as he looked at his diploma. "I'm going to keep my promise." And somewhere across the state, Lisa was having restless nights, dreaming about a little boy with kind eyes who had once promised to love her forever. Tommy was now 20 years old and in his second year of college, studying to become a teacher. He had grown into a remarkable young man, tall, handsome, and carrying himself with a quiet confidence that came from years of hard work and determination. But despite his success, there was always something missing in his life. He dated occasionally, but no relationship ever felt right. His friends couldn't understand why he was so picky. "You're going to end up alone if you keep this up," his roommate, David, would tell him. Not every girl is going to be perfect, but Tommy wasn't looking for perfect. He was looking for the feeling he had experienced 12 years ago when a kind woman had made him believe he was worth something. He was looking for someone who could make him feel the way Lisa had made him feel. The call came on a rainy Thursday morning in November. Tommy's mom's voice was shaky on the other end of the phone. "Tommy, honey, I have some sad news. Your grandmother passed away last night in her sleep." Tommy felt his world stop for a moment. His grandmother had been like a second mother to him, especially during the years when his mom was working multiple jobs. She was the one who had encouraged his dreams and always believed he would do something special with his life. "When is the funeral, Mom?" "This Saturday. I know you have classes, but I'll be there," Tommy said without hesitation. "Grandma was everything to me. I wouldn't miss it." That weekend, Tommy drove back to his small hometown for the first time in over a year. The place looked smaller than he remembered, but it still felt like home. The funeral was held at the old church where his grandmother had attended services for 40 years. As Tommy sat in the front pew, listening to people share stories about his grandmother's kindness and generosity, he couldn't help but think about all the people who had shaped him into the man he had become: his grandmother, his mother, his teachers, and of course Lisa. The service was beautiful, and Tommy was touched by how many people came to pay their respects. His grandmother had been loved by everyone in the community. After the ceremony, people gathered in the church hall to share food and memories. Tommy was talking with some of his grandmother's neighbors when he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Tommy, is that really you?" He turned around and his heart nearly stopped. Standing there looking almost exactly as beautiful as he remembered was Lisa. She was 32 now, with a few more lines around her eyes, but she still had that same warm smile and those same kind eyes that had captivated him 12 years ago. For a moment, neither of them could speak. Tommy felt like he was 8 years old again, sitting at that table in the community center. Lisa felt a rush of emotions she hadn't expected: joy, surprise, and something deeper that she couldn't quite name. "Miss Lisa," Tommy finally managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can't believe it's really you," Lisa said, stepping closer. "Look how much you've grown. You're so tall." They both started laughing, and suddenly the years between them seemed to disappear. Tommy was amazed at how natural it felt to see her again, like no time had passed at all. "What are you doing here?" Tommy asked, still trying to process that she was actually standing in front of him. "I heard about your grandmother through Mrs. Patterson at the community center," Lisa explained. "Your grandmother was always so kind to me when I worked there. She would bring homemade cookies for all the volunteers. I had to come and pay my respects. Tommy felt tears welling up in his eyes. Even in death, his grandmother was bringing good things into his life. I can't believe you remembered her, he said. Of course I remembered her, Lisa replied. And I remembered you too. I've wondered about you so many times over the years. They found a quiet corner of the hall where they could talk without being interrupted. Lisa couldn't get over how much Tommy had changed. The shy, small boy she remembered had grown into a confident, articulate young man. But his eyes were the same, still kind, still genuine. Tell me everything, Lisa said. What have you been doing all these years? Tommy told her about high school, about becoming student body president, about his scholarship to college. He told her about studying education and his dream of becoming a teacher. Just like you, he said with a smile. You inspired me to want to help kids the way you helped me. Lisa felt her heart swell with pride. This wonderful young man was sitting here telling her that she had made a difference in his life. It was more than she could have ever hoped for. What about you? Tommy asked. Are you still teaching? Lisa told him about her life in Atlanta, about her students, about the programs she had started to help kids from low-income families. As she talked, Tommy found himself falling in love all over again. She was even more amazing than he had remembered. Are you married? Tommy asked hesitantly. He had to know, even though he was almost afraid of the answer. Lisa shook her head. No, I'm not married. I've dated, but... She paused, looking at Tommy with an expression he couldn't quite read. I guess I never found the right person. Tommy felt his heart skip a beat. He wanted to tell her right then and there that he was still interested in keeping his childhood promise, but he knew it would sound crazy. Instead, he just smiled and said, I'm sure the right person is out there somewhere. They talked for hours, long after most of the other guests had gone home. Tommy's mom came over at one point to say hello to Lisa, and she was amazed by the woman her son had never stopped talking about. You look exactly like I pictured you, Tommy's mom said warmly. Thank you for being so kind to my boy all those years ago. Lisa hugged her. Tommy was special even then. I could tell he was going to do great things. As the evening wound down, Tommy and Lisa exchanged phone numbers and promised to stay in touch. But as they stood in the parking lot saying goodbye, both of them knew this was more than just a casual reconnection. Tommy, Lisa said softly, I want you to know that I kept your drawing all these years. It's still on my bulletin board. Tommy's eyes widened in surprise. Really? Really, it always reminded me of the sweetest thing anyone ever said to me. Tommy took a deep breath. He knew this might be his only chance to tell her how he really felt. Miss Lisa, he said, using the name he had called her when he was 8. I need you to know that I never forgot what I said to you that day, and I need you to know that it wasn't just a silly kid thing. Even now, 12 years later, Lisa put her hand gently on his arm. Tommy, you don't have to say anything else, I understand. Do you? He asked, searching her eyes. Lisa nodded slowly. I think I do, and I think we both need some time to process what this means. Tommy felt a flutter of hope in his chest. She wasn't saying no. She wasn't laughing at him or treating him like a child. She was taking him seriously. Can I call you? He asked. I hope you will, Lisa replied. As Tommy drove back to college that night, his mind was racing. He had found her. After all these years, he had actually found her. And unless he was completely wrong, she seemed happy to see him too. Lisa drove back to her hotel room in a daze. The little boy who had promised to marry her had grown up to be an incredible young man. He was smart, kind, handsome, and clearly still interested in her. But there was so much to think about. The age difference, what people would say, whether this could actually work. That night, both Tommy and Lisa lay awake thinking about their unexpected reunion. Neither of them knew what the future held, but both of them felt like something important had just begun. Tommy stared at the ceiling of his dorm room and whispered, I found you, Miss Lisa, just like I promised I would. And hundreds of miles away, Lisa looked at Tommy's childhood drawing on her bulletin board and whispered back, Yes, you did, and I'm so glad you did. The phone call started the very next week. At first, Tommy and Lisa talked like old friends catching up, sharing stories about their lives and reminiscing about their time at the community center. But as the weeks went by, their conversations grew deeper and more personal. "I have to ask you something," Lisa said during one of their late-night phone calls. "Why didn't you ever forget about me? Most kids would have moved on and found new crushes." Tommy was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "You made me feel like I mattered when nobody else did. You saw something good in me when I couldn't see it in myself. How could I forget someone who changed my whole life?" Lisa felt tears welling up in her eyes. She had known that her work at the community center was important, but she had never realized the lasting impact she had made on one little boy. "Tommy, I need to be honest with you about something," she said. "I never forgot about you either. I kept thinking about that sweet little boy who was so kind and determined. I wondered what happened to you." "And what do you think now that you know?" Tommy asked, his heart pounding. "I think," Lisa said slowly, "that little boy grew up to be an amazing man. But I'm scared, Tommy. The age difference, what people will think, whether this can really work." Tommy understood her concerns. He had thought about all of those things too, but he also knew that what he felt for Lisa was real, and it had nothing to do with their ages. "Lisa," he said, dropping the formal "Miss" for the first time, "I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm just asking for a chance to show you who I am now. Can we start there?" Lisa smiled even though he couldn't see her through the phone. "I think we can start there." Their first official date was awkward and wonderful at the same time. Tommy drove the 3 hours to Atlanta on a Saturday, and they met for lunch at a small cafe near Lisa's apartment. Both of them were nervous, but as soon as they started talking, the conversation flowed naturally. Tommy was amazed by how mature and accomplished Lisa was. She told him about her students, her volunteer work, and her dreams of starting a program for underprivileged children. Lisa was equally impressed by Tommy's intelligence and ambition. He wasn't the little boy she remembered. He was a thoughtful, confident young man with clear goals and a kind heart. "So what's your 5-year plan?" Lisa asked over coffee. "Finish my degree, get my teaching certificate, and find a job where I can make a difference in kids' lives," Tommy replied. "What about you?" "I want to open my own learning center someday. Somewhere kids who are struggling can get the help they need regardless of whether their families can afford it." Tommy's eyes lit up. "That's exactly the kind of place I wish I'd had when I was younger. Well, besides the community center where I met you." They spent the afternoon walking through the city, talking about everything and nothing. Tommy bought Lisa a small bouquet of flowers from a street vendor, and she tucked one behind her ear, making him smile. "You know," Lisa said as they sat on a park bench watching the sunset, "this feels surprisingly natural." "What do you mean?" Tommy asked. "Being here with you like this? I thought it would be weird, but it doesn't feel weird at all. It feels right." Tommy turned to face her. "Lisa, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you worried about what other people will think about us?" Lisa sighed. "Honestly? Yes. The age difference is going to raise eyebrows. Some people might think it's inappropriate." Tommy nodded. "I've thought about that too. But you know what I realized? The people who really care about us will see how happy we make each other. And the people who don't support us, well, their opinions don't really matter." Lisa was impressed by his maturity. At 20, Tommy had a wisdom about relationships that some men twice his age never developed. Their relationship developed slowly and carefully. Tommy would drive to Atlanta every other weekend, and sometimes Lisa would meet him halfway for dinner. They talked on the phone every night, sharing their daily experiences and dreams for the future. Lisa's friends were skeptical at first. When she told her best friend Monica about Tommy, Monica's reaction was immediate. "Lisa, he's 12 years younger than you. And didn't you know him when he was a child? This whole thing is bizarre." "I know how it sounds," Lisa said patiently. "But Monica, if you met him, you'd understand. He's not some college kid looking for a fling. He's mature, he's serious about his future, and he treats me better than any man I've ever dated." "But what kind of future can you have with someone so much younger?" What happens when you're ready for marriage and kids and he wants to go out and party? Lisa had wondered about these things too. But the more time she spent with Tommy, the less concerned she became. He wasn't interested in partying or playing around. He was focused on his goals and building something meaningful with her. Tommy faced similar skepticism from his friends at college. When he told his roommate David that he was dating someone, David was excited to hear details. So who is she? Someone from your education classes? Actually, Tommy said carefully, she's someone I've known for a long time. Her name is Lisa, and she's a teacher in Atlanta. Cool, how old is she? David asked casually. She's 32. David nearly choked on his drink. Dude, she's 12 years older than you. How did you even meet someone that old? Tommy told David the whole story. About meeting Lisa when he was 8, about his childhood promise, about finding her again at his grandmother's funeral. David listened with his mouth hanging open. That's either the most romantic thing I've ever heard, or the weirdest, David finally said. Are you sure you're not just living out some childhood fantasy? I'm sure, Tommy said firmly. David, I've dated other people. I know the difference between fantasy and reality. What I feel for Lisa is real, and it's based on who she is now, not just my memories of her. The real test came when Tommy brought Lisa home to meet his mother for the second time, this time as his girlfriend rather than just an old friend from the community center. Tommy's mom had mixed feelings about the relationship, but she could see how happy her son was. Lisa, his mom said as they sat on the porch after dinner, I hope you don't mind me being direct, but I have some concerns. Of course, Lisa replied. I'd be worried if you didn't. Tommy has been talking about you since he was 8 years old. You've been his ideal woman for 12 years. That's a lot to live up to. What if the reality of being in a relationship with him is different from what either of you expects? Lisa appreciated the honesty. Mrs. Johnson, I understand your concerns, and I'll be completely honest with you. I'm scared too. But I care about Tommy deeply, and I'm committed to seeing where this relationship can go. I would never do anything to hurt him. Tommy's mom studied Lisa's face and saw genuine sincerity there. I can see that you care about him, and I can see that he's happier than he's been in years. Just please be careful with his heart. He's been waiting a long time for this. I will, Lisa promised. As months passed, Tommy and Lisa's relationship grew stronger. They supported each other's goals, challenged each other intellectually, and discovered that they shared the same values and dreams for the future. Tommy helped Lisa develop her idea for the Learning Center, and Lisa encouraged Tommy to apply for competitive teaching programs. One evening, as they sat in Lisa's apartment grading papers together, she was working on her students' essays while he worked on assignments for his education classes. Lisa looked up and realized something. Tommy, she said softly. Yeah? He replied, not looking up from his textbook. I love you. Tommy's head snapped up, and he saw Lisa looking at him with tears in her eyes. I love you too, he said, setting down his book and moving to sit beside her on the couch. I've loved you since I was 8 years old, and I love you even more now. Lisa laughed through her tears. You know, when you were 8 and told me you were going to marry me, I never imagined it could actually happen. But now... Now what? Tommy asked, taking her hands in his. Now I can actually picture a future with you. A real future. Tommy pulled her close and held her tight. They still had challenges ahead, questions from friends and family, the practical matters of building a life together, the ongoing concern about their age difference. But in that moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was that they had found each other again, and they were ready to build something real together. Lisa, Tommy whispered into her ear, I have a question for you. What's that? Will you let me keep my promise? Lisa pulled back to look at him, confused. What promise? Tommy smiled, and for just a moment she could see the 8-year-old boy he used to be shining through his eyes. The promise I made to marry you when I grew up. Lisa started crying and laughing at the same time. Tommy Johnson, are you asking? Me to marry you? Not yet, he said with a grin. But I'm asking if you'll let me ask you someday soon. Lisa kissed him softly. I think I can live with that. 6 months later, Tommy graduated from college with honors and a degree in elementary education. Lisa was there in the audience, beaming with pride as he walked across the stage. After the ceremony, as they celebrated with Tommy's family, he pulled her aside. I have something for you, he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. Tommy, you already gave me that beautiful necklace for graduation. You don't need to give me anything else. This isn't from me, Tommy said, pulling out a small, worn envelope. This is from my grandmother. Lisa looked at him in confusion. What do you mean? My mom found this in Grandma's things when we were cleaning out her house. It has your name on it. Lisa took the envelope with shaking hands. Sure enough, written in careful handwriting on the front was, For Lisa, Tommy's special friend. Inside was a short letter dated just 2 months before his grandmother's death. Dear Lisa, the letter read, I don't know if Tommy will ever find you again, but if he does, I want you to know something. That little boy has loved you with his whole heart for 12 years. He talks about you like you hung the moon and stars. I've watched him turn down dates and ignore pretty girls because none of them measured up to his memory of you. If you're reading this, it means he found you, and it probably means he's about to ask you an important question. I just want you to know that you have my blessing. That boy deserves all the love in the world, and I think you're the one who can give it to him. Welcome to the family, dear. Love, Grandma Johnson. Lisa was crying by the time she finished reading. Tommy's grandmother had known, even before they found each other again, that they belonged together. She knew, Lisa whispered. She somehow knew this would happen. Tommy took her hands in his. Lisa, Grandma was right. I'm about to ask you an important question. Before Lisa could process what was happening, Tommy was down on one knee in the middle of the graduation party. Everyone around them stopped talking and turned to watch. Lisa, Tommy said, his voice strong and clear. 13 years ago, I made you a promise. I promised that when I grew up, I was going to marry you. I'm grown up now, and I love you more than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me and let me keep that promise? The ring he held out was simple but beautiful, a classic solitaire that sparkled in the afternoon sun. Lisa looked down at the man she loved, remembering the 8-year-old boy who had captured her heart all those years ago. Yes, she said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, I'll marry you, Tommy Johnson. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Tommy's mom was crying happy tears, and even some of the people who had been skeptical about their relationship were wiping their eyes. As Tommy slipped the ring onto Lisa's finger, she couldn't help but think about how perfect this moment was. They were surrounded by the community that had brought them together in the first place, celebrating not just Tommy's graduation, but the fulfillment of a promise that had been 13 years in the making. The wedding planning began immediately. Lisa and Tommy decided they wanted their ceremony to be held at the Riverside Community Center where they first met. The building had been renovated over the years, but the spirit of the place remained the same. Are you sure you want to have it here? Lisa asked as they toured the space with the wedding coordinator. We could have it at a fancy hotel or a beautiful church. Tommy shook his head. This is where our story began. This is where it should continue. Lisa agreed. There was something perfect about coming full circle, about celebrating their love, in the place where it first took root. They sent invitations to everyone who had been part of their journey, family, friends, former colleagues from the community center, and even some of the kids Tommy and Lisa had worked with over the years. Many of those children were now teenagers or young adults, but they all remembered the kind teacher and the determined little boy who had found his way back to her. The wedding day arrived on a perfect spring morning. Lisa got ready in the same room where she used to plan activities for the children. As she looked at herself in the mirror, wearing her grandmother's vintage lace wedding dress, she could hardly believe this day was real. Her maid of honor, Monica, had become one of Tommy and Lisa's biggest supporters after getting to know him better. You know, Monica said as she helped Lisa with her veil. I owe you an apology. When you first told me about Tommy, I thought you were making a mistake. But watching you two together, seeing how he looks at you and how happy you are, I've never seen love like this before." Lisa smiled. "Thank you for saying that, and thank you for being here even when you had doubts. Are you nervous?" Monica asked. Lisa thought about it. "Surprisingly, no. I feel like I've been waiting my whole life for this day. Everything finally makes sense." Meanwhile, Tommy was getting ready in what used to be the storage room. His best man was his college roommate David, who had also come around to supporting the relationship. "You ready for this, man?" David asked as he helped Tommy adjust his tie. "I've been ready for 13 years, Tommy replied with a grin. No, when you first told me about Lisa, I thought you were crazy. But seeing you with her, seeing how she brings out the best in you, I get it now. You two are meant to be together." Tommy clapped his friend on the shoulder. "Thanks, David, that means a lot." The ceremony was held in the main room of the community center, decorated with simple white flowers and candles. As the guests took their seats, many of them commented on how appropriate it was to have the wedding in this place that meant so much to both Tommy and Lisa. When the music started and Lisa began walking down the aisle, Tommy felt his breath catch in his throat. She was absolutely beautiful, but more than that, she was finally going to be his wife. The 8-year-old boy inside him was jumping up and down with joy. Lisa walked toward Tommy with tears of happiness in her eyes. She could see that same sweet, earnest expression on his face that she had fallen in love with all those years ago. He was still that same kind, determined boy, just in a man's body now. The officiant was the pastor who had performed Tommy's grandmother's funeral service. He had known Tommy since he was a baby and had heard the story of his childhood promise many times over the years. "Dearly beloved," the pastor began, "we are gathered here today to witness something truly special. This isn't just a wedding. This is the fulfillment of a promise made by a little boy with a big heart to a young woman who showed him kindness when he needed it most." Tommy and Lisa had written their own vows, and when it came time to recite them, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "Lisa," Tommy said, his voice steady despite his emotions, 13 years ago, I told you I was going to marry you when I grew up. You probably thought it was just something a silly kid would say, but I meant it then, and I mean it even more now. You saw something in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You made me believe I was worth something. You showed me what love looks like. I promise to spend the rest of my life loving you the way you loved me, unconditionally, patiently, and with my whole heart." Lisa's vows were just as emotional. "Tommy, when you were 8 years old, you told me I was special, but the truth is, you were the special one. You taught me what pure, honest love looks like. You never gave up on us, even when it seemed impossible. You grew up to be everything I could have hoped for and more. I promise to support your dreams, to stand by your side through everything life brings us, and to never forget the amazing little boy who stole my heart all those years ago." When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, Tommy and Lisa kissed, as the entire room erupted in celebration. Many of the guests were crying, moved by the beautiful love story they had just witnessed. At the reception, Tommy and Lisa's first dance was to a song that had been playing on the radio the day they first met at the community center. As they swayed together, Tommy whispered in Lisa's ear, "I told you I'd marry you when I grew up." Lisa laughed through her tears. "You certainly did, and I'm so glad you kept your promise." The speeches that night were filled with stories about Tommy's determination and Lisa's kindness. Tommy's mom talked about how her son had never stopped believing in true love. Lisa's former supervisor from the community center shared memories of the sweet little boy who used to help clean up after activities, just to spend more time near Lisa. But the most touching moment came when Tommy stood up to give his own speech. "Want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began. "Many of you have been part of our story from the beginning. You watched a little boy fall in love with a wonderful woman, and you watched that woman plant seeds of kindness that grew into something beautiful." He turned to Lisa. "Lisa, you changed my life when I was 8 years old. You made me believe I could be anything I wanted to be. You showed me that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice you make every day to see the best in someone. Thank you for choosing to love me, both then and now. The crowd gave them a standing ovation, and Tommy and Lisa kissed again as everyone cheered. A year later, Tommy and Lisa opened their learning center together, a place where children from all backgrounds could get help with their education and feel valued and supported. They called it Second Chances Learning Center because they believed everyone deserved a second chance to reach their potential.